Hey everybody, welcome back to Windy City Astrophotography. In this video, I want to give you a quick tutorial on how to achieve focus with your guide scope using the ASIAir. So for most guide scopes, the guide camera here will insert into the end, and there's generally some sort of locking pin or maybe a locking ring in order to keep it in place. Now, as far as how far in it actually goes, it might be a little bit of a guess. If you have something like this with a 290mm mini, you can just insert it into just about that black ring there. That's going to be a decent first guess as to the distance that's going to work. So with the method I'm going to show you, you're going to be first making large adjustments to find a rough focus, and then you'll be locking that position in for the camera, and then using the helical focuser for more fine adjustments if you have a helical focuser. Now I would say I've got mine currently set, and I'm trying to remember this, it's around 3.5, but if you're just starting, this one goes from 0 to 10, so I'm going to have it right around 5. That'll be the middle of its focusing range, and then once we get these larger adjustments done and figure out where it's decently close to good star sizes, then we'll lock the camera in at that location and then use the helical focuser for some fine adjustments. Now on my guide scope as well, the entire shaft here can actually slide in and out. So that's another adjustment that you need to be aware of, where you may have to bring it out several centimeters like I have mine here in order for the guide scope to actually be able to reach the correct distance for the focus to happen. Of course, also make sure that your guide camera is attached to your ASIAir, and that can either be done directly in through the USB connections here, or as I have mine arranged, you can actually have it connected to your main camera through the USB 2.0 connection. So once we have that all set up, we're going to boot up the ASIAir. So boot up the ASIAir app and then make sure that it's actually recognizing that guide camera. And we can see here in my guide camera settings, here's the ASI 290mm mini. Now, here's the trick. I'm actually going to disconnect that. I'm going to disable it as the guide camera. And then I'm going to go into my main camera settings. You can see my ASI 1600mm Pro is connected. I'm actually going to disconnect that as well. And then here in the main camera settings, I'm actually going to select my 290mm mini and activate that as the main camera. Now what that allows me to do is actually take advantage of the ASIAir focusing utility. This is going to give us very precise control over the actual focus point of our guide camera. So in here, you're going to be able to set your exposure time to whatever's going to work for your particular setup. I'm actually doing a little bit of a tricky thing here tonight. You might be able to tell here, this is not a star that we're looking at. In fact, we're looking out the window. It is way too cold and also way too cloudy in order to be shooting this video outside tonight. So what I've done here is just got a few lights from some buildings in the distance out my window, and I'm able to get some fake stars here, at least to show the principles at work here as we get this into focus. Now, this is something else that you could do if maybe you're new to the ASIAir and you're kind of walking through this process. This is something else you could do perhaps on a cloudy night. So at least for first getting a rough focus on the guide scope, we can actually leave it at this zoomed out view. This is our view through the guide scope itself. Later we'll get into a little bit more of a more particular view through it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to do some rough focusing of the position of this guide scope here. I'm actually going to use, in my case, I'm going to use this gross adjuster here for this shaft within the guide scope, but you could also just be physically moving your guide scope in the main holder there. So what I'm going to do, you can see the view will shift around quite a bit, but I'm attempting to get this reasonably close. That's going to be, we're a little bit too close to it. So as I bring it out, make sure I'm actually adjusting this part, bring it out just slightly. Now it's a little bit different if we're looking at buildings across the street. This is actually getting pretty close to my actual setting of focus for stars at infinity. And you might be able to hear my cat, Cassiopeia, meowing in the background here. So say hi, Cassie. Okay, so we've got that locked into a pretty good location there. I'm actually going to set this set screw here, so that is locked in. So now I'm going to be making fine adjustments using the helical focuser here. Now remember, we had set that at just about the middle of the focusing range there. We're doing a few adjustments beyond what I had it set as for focus, but this should be fine. And we're getting some at least reasonably pinpoint views through this guide scope now. So what I'll do in the app, you can actually drag across this green reticle, and here, let's choose some of these bright points of light in here. What we're going to do then is hit the plus sign here. We're going to actually get a nice zoomed in view of what could be stars or what might be lights on a building in the distance. Now, we're not going to get an actual good star focus number here, but essentially here you're getting the readout of the pixel calculation here, looking at the star size and also the peak. So you're looking for a lower value for the star size and the higher value for the peak. And now using the fine focus knob on the helical focuser, you can see they're going a little bit of out of focus there. And even more out of focus at that point. So we'll bring it back in just about. These are very fine adjustments at this point. It'll be just about here. Now, obviously, through a window and with the diffraction and everything from the screen, we're not going to be getting excellent views here. In fact, it's not really even calculating a star size in this case, but we are getting some reasonable star images there. Now, the nice thing here, this is essentially a live view that you're able to get here because it's pretty high frame rate. It is a very small section of the sensor that you're actually using, so the data that's being transferred is relatively small, and so you're able to get a very quickly updating view here. And this is just on station mode over my Wi-Fi, in this case in my house, but it's essentially I'm able to get outside as well using the Wi-Fi signal from the ASIAir. Excellent. So once that's locked in, I'm going to use this set screw here to set the helical focuser. And now we've got our guide scope in focus. Now at this point, you can stop the focusing utility. You can back out of that or back out into this view. And the view that we're getting now is pretty similar to what we had before. So I'll hit stop and we can back out into preview. Now, at this point, make sure that you remember to disable your guide scope as the main camera and put your main camera back into its rightful position as your main imaging camera. And then go back into your guide settings here and find your guide scope. And you're going to activate that as well. Now, another way you could do this, just kind of on the fly, if you just need to get close enough for guiding purposes, you could do that in the guiding settings here. In fact, if you go in and you do this, you're refreshing the view here before you'd actually choose guide stars here or auto-select multiple guide stars for the calibration process. This is showing our view that we had before. It's a little bit different because the exposure and the gain settings are actually a little bit different here in the guiding utility. However, this is another way to at least get close. If you're looking in here and it's donuts that you're able to see on the stars, you could at least get some rough adjustments to at least get the stars to look pinpoint in this view. But this would be another way to go about doing that and at least get close on the focus for your guide scope. All right, so there you have it. Nothing much to it, but definitely a good skill to have in your back pocket, especially if you're just new to the ASIAir and getting that rig set up, trying to get that guide scope connected and into good focus. But also if you're a veteran user and maybe you're out at a dark sky site and in transit, your guide scope got knocked out of focus or alignment and you need to get it back into it, this is a good tool to have. So if you found this video useful, definitely do give it a like. It's going to help others find it as well. Of course, thanks as always for watching Windy City Astrophotography, and if you haven't subscribed yet, definitely please do. Otherwise, clear skies, and we'll see you next time.